Alright guys, this week is going to be an absolutely massive week for gamers and PlayStation fans. You all know why. We're finally getting the big event this Thursday. And so for today's video, what I wanted to do is talk once again about the PlayStation 5 itself and what developers are saying about the console. Once again, focusing on the I/O throughput and the SSD. And it just seems like as we get closer to this event, obviously as we get closer to launch, more and more developers are chiming in, giving their thoughts on some of the differences we can expect to see, and really talking a lot about the PlayStation 5 and what it has done. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this video, and there are some very interesting things being said. Apparently there is a developer over on Reset Error who is claiming that the PlayStation 5's I/O speed will allow for things you can't do on any other platform, which is very interesting because that's something I've been saying for a little while based off of my understanding of what Sony has opted to do. We're also talking about an Xbox lead developer or engineer who was talking about the differences between the PlayStation 5 and the next generation Xbox and how he believes developers will learn to work around the difference between the SSD and I/O throughput speed. And then finally we have another developer, and it's actually the developers of Ori, the Ori series, and how they talk about, what they're expecting from multi-platform games when it comes to both of these consoles. So a lot of really interesting stuff to go over. I do want to let you know that for tomorrow's video, we are going to be talking about my predictions. We're going to go over all of the games that that not just me, but that I think most of us are expecting to show up at this event, and I want to go over the likelihood of them actually being there. There's no doubt that the expectations for this event are very high. There's no doubt the event is going to be pretty significant. So I know you guys have been patiently waiting for that video, so that's what's going to be coming out tomorrow. And I do want to let you know that when we do stream on Thursday, I will let you know if anything changes, but I plan to do a very, very long stream. So I know that many of you are going to be doing basically the same thing I am that day, which is just, waiting patiently and eagerly for the event to kick off. So I'm probably going to go live pretty early so we can kind of just hang out, talk, just chill basically and express our excitement, and then we'll watch the event together, and then obviously we will talk a lot about the event once it's ended. So anyway, before we go any further, if you could do me a favor, hit the like button to help the video out and show your support. Hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any future content. But starting here with what this developer said on Reset Error, says the debates about the respective specs for the PS5 and Xbox series and how they differ from each other have been raging for months, which is not surprising in the slightest to anyone who's seen console generation transitions before. What's interesting is that both upcoming consoles can claim to have the upper hand over the other in different ways. With the PS5, the biggest advantage it seems to have on paper over its competition right now is its SSD, which seems to be ridiculously fast by all accounts. In fact, according to industry developer Matt on Reset Error, who actually has seen the tech in action, it is far beyond anything the industry has seen up until now. Speaking about the SSDs in both upcoming consoles, Matt remarked that the Xbox Series SSD is an impressive one and definitely a huge upgrade over anything we've seen before. That said, according to him, the PS5's I/O is on a whole other level. The Xbox Series X SSD and whole I/O setup is great and a huge upgrade from anything we've ever had before, he wrote. Microsoft did a really nice job here, absolutely nothing to complain about. But in comparison, the PS5's I/O feels like it was taken from an I/O-focused mid-gen upgrade 4 years from now. It is, very simply, on a whole other level, and yes, that allows for things you can't do on any other platform. He went on to add that the fact that both consoles provide an SSD as a baseline, regardless of the gap between the two, should nonetheless be a big advantage for developers and gamers. But it's both consoles having a baseline SSD that will allow game design on a whole to advance across platforms, and every game and gamer will benefit from that. There are certainly things developers can do with the PS5 that can't be done the same, as fast, or as well on any other consumer hardware at the moment. That's also a fact. The PS5's I/O is a big deal that will lead to actual results in games, he further stated. So some absolutely massive praise and some big words coming from the developer Matt, who is, I believe, verified to be a developer over on Reset Era. I think he's one of the users that is over there a lot and talks a lot about this stuff, but some absolutely huge things being said here. They're claiming that they've seen it in action, and they're making it very clear, in my opinion, as if it hasn't been made clear enough at this point, that what the PS5 has done, not just with the SSD, but with the I/O throughput specifically, with the bandwidth and how everything is going to work together, it's very clear that we can expect to see things done on this console that you literally cannot see done on any other platform, including the next generation Xbox and PC. I know there are some people who don't like it when I say that, but now we're literally hearing this from developers. To kind of further back this up, moving on to the second developer. Again, this is an Xbox lead developer. And so William Stillwell, who currently manages the Mixed Reality program and was once a former Xbox lead, was on the Iron Lords podcast when asked about the PS5 SSD and how it was faster overall than the next generation Xbox. He acknowledged that he thought Sony had made an impressive piece of hardware, but said he had faith that developers will figure out the differences between the two and work through it. I'll say two things with that. One, I understand that it's a marketing point and a high point, and I think I said it in the last podcast we did. I'm really impressed with what they've done in the architecture with their drive, and I think they'll be able to really do cool stuff with it. I also don't think it's as impressive over what you'll be able to do with the Xbox Series X, and so I do have high confidence in that team. I will also say, look, I reserve the right to wake up smarter tomorrow, and someone may prove me wrong, and we'll learn. The one thing I have learned is to never underestimate game developers' ability to take advantage of something and work around it, but that works on both sides. So the ability of a game developer to look and say, okay, I am building this game and I want to have seamless transitions with no loading screens on PlayStation 5, but I'm also going to sell this game on Xbox. What am I going to do to manage that kind of thing? Like, that will be the tricks and techniques, so I'm just making this up. Maybe there are elevators on the Xbox Series X version and not on the PS5 version. I don't know yet how they're going to address it, but they'll learn to address it and they will figure out ways to work around it. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting this quote is because if you listen to what Bill Stillwell or William Stillwell is saying here, he's making it very clear that in this specific scenario, the Xbox Series X is the lower common denominator, and he makes that very clear by saying that if there are developers I think it's safe to assume that the PlayStation 5 is going to be the lead platform that's developed for, simply because of Sony's current position within the market. They have the most market share that will probably continue over, into the transition to these new consoles, and because of that, developers are always going to prioritize the PlayStation console. And so what he says here about, some developers maybe wanting, you have to imagine they'll want to try to take advantage of that SSD or that I/O throughput in any way they can. And in this case, if a developer's dream is to make their game as seamless as possible with no elevators, no loading screens, no nothing, just seamless transitions, they might be able to make that happen on the PlayStation 5 version of their game. And yes, we are talking about multi-platform games here, but they might not be able to make that happen as seamlessly on the Xbox Series X version. In turn, though, because I don't want to make it sound like the Xbox Series X isn't going to have any advantage, in turn, the advantages that you might see on the Series X version of said game is maybe better ray tracing, better overall image quality potentially, but probably not by much. Probably a slight difference there, but there will probably be a difference nonetheless. On the Xbox Series X version, they might have to, as he puts it here, maybe there will be elevators within the Xbox Series X version. Maybe there will be, there might still be things such as you have to walk through this corridor, maybe just for a few seconds, to get to the next area so it can load in properly. Maybe not. But this is what he's saying, and the reason why I'm highlighting what he is saying specifically is because, he's somebody who is an Xbox lead developer, right? Like, he knows what he's talking about. And to be honest, what he's saying is a good thing. He's saying that if developers choose to try to fully harness the power, I guess you could say, or the ability of the SSD and the PS5 and the I/O throughput, they will be able to find workarounds if they can achieve something on the PlayStation 5 version of their game, but maybe they have to add a little bit something extra or find a workaround for the Series X version. They still will be able to do that. And that's good for us as well, because it means that developers will most likely be able to take somewhat full advantage of the SSD and the PS5. And that's important to highlight, because there are a lot of people who have been saying that, third-party titles will not be able to take advantage of it. Or, I mean, let's be real here. Not every third-party game or developer is going to take advantage of either of these consoles to the fullest extent. That's what first-party games are meant to do, but we still want to see them try to do whatever they can, right? So definitely something worth highlighting there. But to end this video, we are talking about what the developer of the Ori series, what they're saying about how the PlayStation 5's SSD speed will be great for first parties in their opinion, but multi-platform games won't be affected. So this is a little bit of a contrasting opinion here potentially. So it says, according to Thomas Mahler, co-founder of Ori developers Moon Studios, that question will have different answers for different developers. Mahler says that while first-party games and PS5 exclusives will obviously reap the benefits of the console's SSD, he doesn't see multi-platform developers adjusting their games to specifically take complete advantage at the same or on the same level, and will instead develop their games for the lowest common denominator. I would be shocked if most third-party developers would not just develop their games for the lowest common denominator. This is what he wrote on Reset Era. I mean, there's literally zero chance that levels will get changed just because of the PS5 can load them faster, simply because it's way too expensive and work intensive to do that. The super fast PS5 SSD is nice for first party, but it won't make any economical sense to heavily adjust your games to suit one particular platform. On PCs and the Xbox, you'll have to work with what's there, so it's two platforms against one. The scenario pointed out in the OP is highly unlikely. So we have to understand that this is also coming from a developer who has worked with Microsoft to make console exclusives for their platform anyway, with the Ori games. And in his opinion, he doesn't see developers kind of changing level design or changing things around or making things specifically for either console. They just think they're going to hit the lowest common denominator. What's super interesting about this is he's making it sound as though the Xbox Series X is the lowest common denominator, and this is where you start to see that this seems to be the only thing that developers are, not the only thing, but the focal point of what developers are talking about when it comes to the PS5. And I don't mean to constantly bring this up on the channel, and for those who are wondering why I am, well, it's because, as I say, each week we're hearing more and more developers come out and talk about this, and it is very interesting to hear their opinions. And the truth is, we're not going to know until we cross that bridge, right? Like, these are developers saying these things, but they are still speculating themselves. However, I don't think anybody doubts for a second that Sony's first-party studios won't be able to take full advantage of the SSD and I/O throughput and truly do things that we won't see on other platforms. I think that's going to be the PlayStation 5's greatest strength and its biggest selling point. I think that's going to be the wow factor, or the X factor, I guess you could say, that the PlayStation 5 is going to offer. Not just exclusive games, but exclusive games that they can show you things like, hey, check this out, check this section of gameplay out. This is not possible on any other platform. This is made possible because of our SSD and I/O throughput solution. As to whether or not we're going to see some huge differences potentially with third-party games, it's anybody's guess at this point. Some developers are saying we might. However, if we do, they believe that developers will be able to find a workaround. And we have other developers who just think it doesn't really make sense. They're always going to target the lowest common denominator. But if there's something that I think we have seen in the past, is developers will occasionally go above and beyond if they can achieve something on a certain platform, and then again they will find workarounds on the other platforms. So we're going to have to wait to see, guys, but either way, I thought all of this information was pretty interesting, so I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. If you could do me a big favor, let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below, and again, hit the like button if you did appreciate the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.